everybody, welcome back to episode 4 of Surrounded by Bourbon. My name is Phil, aka Causeway Whiskey, and today we are looking at Wild Turkey. Now this used to be known as Wild Turkey 81 because of the proof, but they've since dropped that from the label and it is now just known as Wild Turkey Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Obviously a pretty famous brand in the world of whiskey or bourbon. This one hails all the way back to 1855 when a greengrocer named Austin Nichols started selling wines and spirits. And eventually that business would go on to own and sell Wild Turkey whiskey. The distillery itself actually started in Lawrenceburg, Kentucky in 1869 on the Wild Turkey Hill. And it was owned by, I believe I'm saying this right, the Rippy brothers, that's spelled R-I-P-Y. Now legend has it that there was an executive who worked for Austin Nichols at the time called Thomas McCarthy, and he used to bring some barrel samples of the bourbon with him on a wild turkey hunt. And the Swiss whiskey proved to be so popular that they decided to launch this as a brand. And so it was launched in 1942, and Austin Nichols then actually went on to buy the Wild Turkey distillery that was sourcing the whiskey for him. The brand is also synonymous with a bit of a distillation dream team with the father and son of Jimmy and Eddie Russell, who have really been essentially continuously responsible for every Wild Turkey that has been bottled since the late 1960s. But we can maybe discuss a little more about Jimmy and Eddie and further Wild Turkey related discussions. So yeah, this is a straight bourbon, so by now hopefully we know that means that it should be at least 2 years old, but actually this is much older. On the back of the label it tells us that this is between at least 5 to 8 years old, and it has been matured exclusively in new oak casks that have been charred to an alligator char number 4, so very heavily charred barrels. The mash bill is 75% corn, 13% rye and 12% malted barley. So let's see what all those components have, how they've affected the aroma and the taste, and let's hope that we have better scores than we had in the previous 3 reviews. So here we go, we'll get in there with the nose. So I should say that this is, as I've alluded to, it was 81 proof or 40.5% ABV, so you know, just slightly above the legal minimum of 40%. But you know, it's quite a good nose. It's pretty sweet. Definite hints of like brown sugar. There's caramel waffles on there. Get a nice rye spice. There's definitely like garden mint going on as well. That kind of mix of sweet and unsweetened black tea, iced tea, and also some almond notes in there too. So you know, that's a pretty decent nose to start off with. So let's see how this tastes. So, because of the mash bill, this is not considered high rye, but it's definitely the rye that bites first. So you're getting pepper, there's clove, a bit of cinnamon, and then that garden mint is quite pronounced again. And that alligator char too is definitely making itself felt because there is quite a lot of oak going on here. Definitely dries the back of the palate towards the end. And so now we're starting to develop into like the caramels and vanillas. There's a bit of like orchard fruit there. There's like definitely some apple as well. And interestingly, there's like a limestone-esque kind of minerality going on there. Just a hint of something metallic, a bit of copper. And actually for the ABV, the mouthfeel is actually pretty good. It's definitely not as thin as what we had back with, for instance, like the Evan Williams or the Jim Beam. So all in all, I'm actually pleasantly surprised with this. I think this bottle was like $21. So again, we're kind of in the entry level world of bourbon, which we'll be exploring as we go through this series. But you know, this actually, for me, thankfully is enjoyable. This is something that I would be quite happy to sit down with and, you know, either sip on or use it as a cocktail base. There's just a good enough amount of like aroma development and flavour development that I'd be quite happy to sip on this and to buy this again. So how am I going to score this? So you know, value for money, I think it is really good value for money. It's pretty well balanced between the nose and the palate. You know, you get those rye spices and the mint, caramel, the vanilla and so on. It was there in both the aroma and the palate. The finish is, you know, a little short. Hey, it's only like 5 to 8 years old. The rye spice is telling there. It's the overarching profile, but you still get a bit of caramel and oak. So, out of 10, what am I going to score this? Well, I think this is a solid 5. You know, that means, although that's average out of 10, that still means it's a good whiskey. This is something that you'd be happy to have as a kind of staple on your shelf whenever you don't eat something too fancy. You know, this could be like an everyday sipper, as it were. And you know, do with it what you will. You know, put Coke into it if you want. Have it on the rocks. Have it neat. Just whatever way you want to enjoy this. But for the money, I would definitely probably buy that again and have it on the shelf. So this is a whiskey score, because it is something that I would recommend. And I'm delighted that in the 4th video we can have something that I can recommend. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching. Again, leave comments and all the rest of it on the video if you want to. Again, tell me things that maybe I'm missing out on, or that you want me to explore within the range of Wild Turkey. I do have the Long Branch and the 101 in the cabinet as well, so I will be reviewing those at some point. And yeah, that's my thoughts on Wild Turkey. Hopefully you will stick around on my bourbon journey, and it's been lovely to have you accompany me through this. So until next time, have a great night. See you again.